Hey, you guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm very excited about today's guest because she and the group that she's with has a heart for the gospel that aligns beautifully with Teach Them Diligently and with the families who listen in here. But also, they are actually using music as a vehicle for that, and they are training young people and giving platform and opportunities and really helping people get on their feet in the music business. And I am so excited for you to hear all about what they've got going on because I know that for so many of our young people, music's a huge part of their lives. So this is going to be a really impactful and important episode for you to tune into. You may even want to grab them to learn a little bit along the way as well. But I'm excited to welcome Michelle Younkman with us. Michelle is the executive director at the Christian Music Broadcasters, and she has just a really interesting story of how the Lord led her through her career in the music industry, through being a homeschool mom to now kind of coming full circle and being back in that. So, Michelle, welcome to the podcast today. I'm so glad you're
Thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you, Leslie. It's a pleasure to be here. Super excited.
Yes, I am too. I am really eager for everyone to hear your story and to hear what you guys have going on. So, to get us started, why don't you give us a little bit of your story? I would love for everyone to hear how God led you through the different kind of almost phases of your life,
Mhm.
these stages that He led you along the way, and kind of how God tied all that together.
You know, God works in such mysterious ways, right? And that's where faith becomes such a huge part of that. But when I graduated from college, I had a degree in broadcasting, and I knew that I wanted to work in the Christian music industry and be able to work with radio stations. So that was really just what the Lord had put on my heart. I felt like Christian music had such a powerful message in what it
Mm.
conveys. And who better than Christian music radio stations to help propel that message? So I moved to Nashville right after college and worked at a record company and was able to experience what goes on that side of the industry. Once I started having children, though,
Mm.
things kind of looked a little bit different, and the Lord really impressed upon me that as their mother, I had a choice to make. Do I either, after my third child, do I become a stay-at-home mom, or do we have a nanny come in so that I continue to work, pretty full time? Good thing is the Lord allowed for me to be able to work from home and be able to be a part of the developmental stages of our kids' lives, which is
Mm.
so important to me. But by the time my third born was graced our presence, and so it was like, oh, okay, so we really felt like it was an opportunity for me just to be able to love on my children and
Mm.
invest in them. And so we spent a couple years, 5-10 years together. And it was really important to me to be able to teach them God's word and be able to give them a biblical worldview that they would not be able to get anywhere else. If you were to
Right.
ask my mother, Leslie, she would tell you never in a million years would she think that I would be able to homeschool my kids. And I
Amen.
found I found an amazing curriculum. We used my father's world. It told me what to do, what to say. It was a godsend, and we used that all
Mm.
the way through. My youngest is now graduating from high school this year, and so it's been such a process. And once they started getting older, that's when Christian Music Broadcaster called me and said, "Hey, we really need somebody that has the passion that you have for radio and for music to come and lead us into the next generation of what the Lord has in store for us." So it was
Mm.
very evident. God made it just very clear that that's what I needed to do. And so I said, "Yes, Lord, and here's my open hands." And it's just been such a blessing to be able to still work from home and still be able to be a part of my kids' homeschooling lives and what goes on with that, but then also be able to use the just how the Lord has made me and equipped me to be able to do the things that I can do to help all of these artists and radio stations across the country be able to have the impact that God has called them to do in such a different way. So that's how I landed in this seat. Never in a million years would I've thought that this was the trajectory that God would bring me on, but here I am, and I'm so
Mm.
thankful and would never have had it any other way, and just feel that homeschooling was just such a blessing to our family. But yeah, that's how I ended up getting here and running Christian Music Broadcasters.
Yeah, and I love how you noted that God took what he had put in your hand. That's how God works. Just like with Moses with his staff, with us with our background in media and events and stuff like that we had before we started Teach Them Diligently, and you in music, and all of us, if we're really looking for it, we can see God puts in our hand exactly what he wants to use, or wants us to use for his glory. And so it's not this big mystery. God makes it so clear. Follow that passion, really pursue and invest in what God has put in your heart and in your hand. And he is faithful to use it and multiply
Mhm.
it beyond anything that you would have ever imagined, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I would have never imagined this in a million years. But the Lord gives you those passions, and we are all part of the body, and he has equipped us in those ways. And so I think exactly what you said, it's really just surrendering to him and saying, "We're your vessels, Lord. Take us to where you want us to go," right?
Absolutely. I had not been, and I'm still not hugely familiar with Christian broadcasting. I have a lot of questions for you, but over the last about year, my dad has been serving on the board of a very large Christian broadcasting company, and through that, I have been able to see. Just really what the heart is and how it is impacting people who would never hear otherwise, and how just through the nuggets of truth that they're getting, God is planting or taking those seeds, and you're seeing so much fruit come out of it. So I want you to talk to us just a little bit about what Christian broadcasting is all about, and really how it's changed through the years. What have you seen in Christian broadcasting?
That's such a great question. It has changed drastically over the years. And what's so amazing is that there's just so much more availability.
Mhm.
And Christian radio is all about the in the context that we are in with the music radio stations, they're all about pouring love and hope and encouragement to
Right.
their listeners. And what's so fascinating to me, Leslie, is that a lot of our stations that are part of our organization, they 80% of their listeners didn't go to church on Sunday. So there's such a huge mission
Mhm.
field in that space that who would have even thought, like, why are they even listening to Christian radio if they're not engaged, back with their church or a church? And so we really try to equip these radio stations to say, you may be the only Jesus that these people hear each week. And so how do you take that mindset and go, okay, we want to make sure we play the best songs. They're going to be driving them to the Lord and really being able to encourage them in their walk when they may not be getting it anywhere else. So it's fun to see the Lord at work. I have a story to tell you if it's okay.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
we heard about this girl. Her name was Mandy, and she was in prison in North Carolina, and she was listening to her Christian radio station there, and they were doing a pledge drive. So a pledge drive is a share-a-thon or a fundraiser where they're non-commercial. So the way that they are able to be supported is because of the generosity from their listeners. And so this girl was in prison and loved listening to Christian radio. The Lord brought her back. And she had had such a tumultuous past and really saved her from that. So she was listening to this station and she had nothing to give to them. And so she decided that she was going to write them a letter. So she wrote them a letter and she was like, all I have to give to you is really my prayers. Like, I don't have any money, but I'm going to pray for you. So she sent it to the radio station. She gets out of prison about 6 months later, and she's sitting on some bus next to somebody that has this same radio station on, and they are reading that letter, and she is listening to them read her letter out loud and going, only God could make that happen, and
Wow.
when she was at her lowest lows in prison, didn't have family that would come see her, didn't have any engagement with anywhere else, the Lord was able to use Christian music radio to touch her life, to bring her closer to him. So there's such a mission for Christian music radio to really pour into listeners. Right now, Christian music radio is reaching 35 million listeners every single week. And that is
Wow.
such a great number. And we want to go, hey, how can we help these radio stations be able to provide what they need to their listeners and grow and expand their platforms? Because where it's changed over the years has been, it's no longer that you have a radio in your bedroom, or a radio
Mm,
in your kitchen, or your radio, right now you might have an Alexa, or you might have some sort of smart speaker, but the car is really where people are
yeah,
listening the most. The other thing that's changed over the years is there's so much more accessibility to music. So you may
mm,
not necessarily depend solely on the radio to be able to provide you music. You can get that on Spotify or Pandora, or all these other places. But the key to Christian music radio is that they are delivering brand new music. You know that your station is not going to play artists that maybe don't align with your values or what your
right.
beliefs are. And we can see light, our culture is changing. And so might be some questions about that. And that's what I love, that Christian radio can deliver these new artists and deliver the favorites, and really be really that connector between the audience and the artist. So artists that we work with would be like a Toby Mac, or Matthew West, or
Mm,
CC Winans, or Jeremy Camp. All these artists play such an important role in our walk with Jesus, and I love that, we just get to be able to play a part of that, of helping these radio stations see how they can help convey that message and further the gospel that way.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And I mentioned before, I'm actually going to read from your website because I love what you at Christian Music Broadcasters note as your mission. You say that it's giving more platform to the gospel message so that more people in more places are reached for Jesus. And I think that the opportunities to participate in that, like you were just laying out, they're so profound, but they're so exciting. The fact that you could play a role in reaching 35 million hearts a week, that's, where else are you going to get that kind of an opportunity? This is incredible, open doors to people you could never meet otherwise. So I, for those who are listening, and for me as well, what are some of the roles that are needed to make this mission happen? So within the Christian music broadcasting community, what are some of the skill sets and some of the things that we could have in our hands to actually participate in that gospel outreach?
You know what? That is such a good question, because when we talk to people, they go, "Hey, like, I don't necessarily have a voice to be on the radio." And the thing is, it's just so much more than that. It's
Mm,
about like social media. Do you know how to be able to reach people through that platform, or digital media, or looking at promotions? So being able to engage with your community and do certain events like that might be artist related. So we know in Washington D.C. right now, our radio station that's there, WGTS, is doing what they call a drive-through difference, where they've got an artist that's literally at the drive-through at Chick-fil-A that is serving people that are coming through the line. And if they say their radio station name, then you get your meal for free. So there's things like that like are just great on like promotions and marketing. Obviously, programming, that role just takes the place of, what are we going to say on the radio and play that's going to touch people's lives? So whatever comes out of the speaker, that's what the program director is responsible
mm,
for. Some stations call that like a content director, or somebody that's really the one that's kind of driving this ship, and that person oversees all of our on-air staff. So your morning show team, you might have an afternoon show team, you might have one person doing middays. So there's all these different parts that are in addition to being on air, as well as, okay, I'm also doing promotions. One of the things that we really stress to like our students that have going through college that are looking to have a career in this field is that, and I don't know, I might, this might work for way more than just radio, but it's so important to be multifaceted. So
mm.
don't just come to the table and say, "Oh, I know all about social." It's more valuable for you to go, "I know about social, and I know how to do events," or "I know how to talk on the radio better." And I think that is super important. But that's kind of like the makeup of a radio station. You asked like for skills and qualifications. A lot of times it comes down to the heart. So do you
Hmm.
have a heart to serve? Because it's really about pouring love and encouragement to your listeners. And there's plenty of other jobs that are out there, but this is one that's going to really deliver you person to person, face to face with your listeners, to be able to encourage them, whether that is on the air or not. My son is a senior in high school right now. My youngest is, as I mentioned, and he wants to go into radio. So he's having fun creating his own podcast, and he's having fun exploring that area and seeing how that he can be creative. And it's exciting to me to see that happen, because we need that next generation. Right now, our radio stations are going, where is our
Yeah.
farm team? Where is that
Yeah.
next generation of broadcasters? And that's one of our heart's desires, is to come in and bridge that gap for them, to be able to say, hey, I know for me, and this is really painful to say, Leslie, but my college that I went to, they no longer offer a radio degree.
Mm.
There's no more broadcasting degree. So what is it, okay, well, if that's the case, then what can I go into that I could utilize that skill set, that knowledge, by being better employee, a better person that the Lord can use, a missionary, if you will,
Yeah.
to be able to help grow a radio station. So there's so many different areas, with marketing degrees, with business degrees, with leadership, when it comes to even, a Bible degree, to be able to know, how can I communicate effectively on the air the story that I need to share about how the Lord touched this person's life. So a lot of times, as I mentioned, it's really about the heart of the person and how they feel like they have a heart to serve others and the Lord through that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I love that you made a point to tie it to the heart. Your heart to serve is, in any ministry, your highest qualification. That is what is going to set you aside as actually being right to work with us, and
Yes,
teach them
yes.
diligently, or with you guys in Christian broadcasting, because there's not a whole lot of glory in these behind the scene things, but you are making such an impact. And so that is really, that boils down why I think that the families who we have gotten to know through Teach Them Diligently, they homeschool because of discipleship. They are giving their children a firm foundation in their faith, and a heart to love God and love people and serve them in his name. And this, the way that you've laid this out, I'm so excited, because you just opened a whole new world that I don't know that a whole lot of them had actually considered
Hmm.
before, as
Hmm.
what could be your mission field in this next season of your life as you're launching out. How can you impact a whole lot of people? Christian music broadcasting is a great way to do that.
You're exactly right. I know at one time my son talked about being a missionary in Germany, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to pray about that." Like, I want to do him to do what the Lord wants him to do, but I'm also a selfish person, and so we've worked through that. And if that's what the Lord decides to do, then I'm gonna have to trust Him through that for sure. But there's a mission field right here that does need to hear about
Mm,
Jesus. And I'm excited about radio doing that and being able to just connect with their hearts. I've got a friend who has a son that's graduating from college here in the next couple of weeks, and he's looking for a job, and he's in a major that is hard to find jobs. And I was telling her about some of the things that we do, and she's like, there's nothing in a lot of fields that really helps to connect these students with
yeah.
future employers. And so that's really important to us. And one of the things, we do an event every year. It's called Momentum. It's in Orlando. It's in a couple of weeks. It's in May this year. And we have students that join us for this event because they want to learn how to grow and how to be better, or what they need to do in order to get a job, or maybe meet a potential employer. And one of the best things that I can hear them say is, we love coming to this event because you guys make us feel like we're not students, like we are a
Yeah.
part of this community. And that's so important, because they are a part of this community,
Exactly.
and we want them to feel that way.
That is awesome. Can you share with us, maybe a personal story of someone who, had a passion for music, passion for the music industry, and was able to see the Lord open the doors and give them a career in this field, just so it kind of lays out how it can happen, what it can look like, what God can do.
Mm, we've got a radio station that's in Greenville, South Carolina. It's called His Radio. And the guy that's the operations manager there, his name is Rob. And he has such an amazing story about where he was homeless at the age of 12 and went through
Wow.
such an incredible journey to even get where he is. And he does the morning show there. I encourage anybody to go check it out. It's his radio. I think it's hisradio.com.
It
But
is.
it is. Okay. That's
I live in
it.
Greenville, so
Oh, so you know exactly what I'm talking
I know
about.
I do. I
But
do.
Rob has got a heart of gold, and it's I think he you know all the turmoil that he's gone through, and even recently he's had some health scares. It's
Mhm.
almost like he's on this front line, right, Leslie? And the Lord is protecting him, but Satan does not want him to succeed because of the millions of people that he is impacting. But God was able to save him through being homeless at the age of 12. I mean, who
Wow.
even hears of that? And being
Yeah.
able to go through such, I mean, his story, I hope that you get to hear it someday being there in his city, but it's just really where God brought him to a place where now he's able to not just say, God loves you, but
Mm.
truly to his core believes that because of what God did to save him from a life of drugs and addiction and homelessness.
Wow.
So there
Amazing.
are many stories like that, or even people that tune into Christian music radio. The amount of stories that you can hear of people saying, I literally was going to commit suicide. And I
Mm.
tuned into your radio station and heard this song that totally changed my life. And there's no other music, there's no other radio station format out there that can say that. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that is so powerful that the Lord can use that, especially with all those people that are not in church, that may not have that community that you and I may have with our churches. So
Yeah.
this may be the only community that they end up having. So I think that
Yeah.
there's I mean story after story like that where God is using this music to bring people closer to him.
Wow. It's just so exciting, and praise the Lord for the way that he is using this. Um I stand in awe. I love it. Like I noted before, my dad shares stories a lot, and I have been so humbled because we think about God working in the ways that we can see and kind of control. And then you hear about, 35 million people who are hearing stuff that is so beyond anything we would have ever imagined, and only a great and good and loving God can do that. For us homeschool parents who have kids who may be the perfect trajectory for them, how can we start preparing them now? What kind of experiences can we give them? What kind of really, specific classes or skill sets or whatever? How can we as homeschool parents on mission start preparing our children who would be interested in going down this path?
That's a great question, and knowing like where do you even start, right? And I
Right.
think that it's important to listen to the radio, right, and see how the people that you're listening to. So like a Rob at his radio, how what does he say that makes me feel like I am the only one listening to him? And I think that's really good to do that. Listening to the music and being a fan of the music. There's no reason for anybody to be a part of the Christian music industry in radio on the record company side if you don't like Christian music.
Yeah.
And it kind of defeats the purpose. And so
Hmm.
being able to have a love of music is really important. We do have people that this is just a job for them. And I think that that is where the Lord is working on their hearts to go. But this music, it expands further than just outside of your speaker. So I think having a love for the radio, as far as classes go, I think it'd be really important to look at like marketing classes. What does that look like in different ways so that you bring a different lens to the table at a radio station of like, have we thought about billboards? Well, billboards are the number one way for people to be able to connect with your radio station because you're listening in the car. So being able to maybe give some new perspectives of, hey, has anybody thought of We have one radio station that does a promotion every February called Love That Sticks. It's our station in Houston. And they just put Post-it notes, and you write notes to different people, just telling them how much you love them and how much God loves them. And so creating unique ways to be able to connect with people. And I think that there might be even some like looking at these different colleges. So like my son being a senior has looked at colleges that are really thriving in that space. So Olivet Nazarene University up in Kankakee, Illinois is one of our college that is really bringing a lot of students into our marketplace to be able to have jobs down the road. Or a Northwestern University, it might be University of Northwestern. It's up in Minneapolis. It's a Christian station that's there. And they do, they provide a lot of people to our industry. So I think too, like looking at maybe some colleges that do have a department that is devoted to helping the growth of radio or music radio. Some of these people have great like talk sports parts of their broadcasting department. And by being in that way, you're learning different skill set that you could still use on either side, no matter what your format is. I remember when I was in high school and I was asking my teachers like what I could do. One of them said that I should go to an auctioneer school. And I was like, that made no sense to me. But the more I looked into it, I was like, I can understand how they would say that, because an auctioneer has to be thinking on their feet all the time and can't take a breath, but it has to keep going and going. And so how do you continue to talk without having the wherewithal to go, okay, what in the world am I going to say next? So another thing is learning how to prep. So a lot of our radio stations, they're not just getting on the radio and just talking about, boy, isn't it a beautiful day outside? They're going to talk about like today, Chris Tomlin is coming to town, and we've got him. He's going to be over at our booth at the fairgrounds for this women's event, and he's going to be handing out lunch to everyone. We hope that you will join us and join Chris Tomlin and be a part of this, of our time together. And it's all really about building that community with what you do with Chris Tomlin at different events like that. So really listening to the radio is really the first step. And I think too, that looking at more than just your own radio station in your city. So we've got great stations out there with K-Love and Air One. We've got, KLTY in Dallas and KSBJ in Houston. And what's so just so awesome to see the Lord at work. Our station in Minneapolis, KTIS, is number one in their market. They're beating out all other radio stations. And that's the case for a lot of our stations. WCSG in Grand Rapids, they are number one in their market. So the Lord is at work in such a way, but they need more people to come in to be able to sustain what they are doing. And that's what I love about what we're talking about, is to be able to spark anything that might be inside somebody's heart of like, I want to be some sort of communicator. I want to be a marketer, but I don't know where to start. And this may be a connecting point for them.
That is amazing. So exciting. So many opportunities, just a myriad of different opportunities, which I love too. There's really, again, whatever God has put in your hand, you can use it through this medium. And it's what a phenomenal thing that it encompasses so many different skill sets and interests. I love it, as long as your heart is to serve God and serve people in his name. Tell us, before we're running a little low on time, but I want you to tell us about what Christian music broadcasters, specifically CMB University. I know you guys have an event coming up. Tell us how you're equipping young people to really dive into this.
So we do this event. It's in Nashville. We try to make it so that it's somewhat within a nice driving range, but also all the artists are there, all the record companies are there, some of our larger networks are there, so that we can pull from these people to help us be able to really invest in the next generation of broadcasters. So we invite college-age students to join us. So if somebody's graduating from high school this year, you are more than welcome to join us. You can go to our website at CMB cmbonline.org. And then you can type in CMB University, or cmbuniversity.org is also a page. But what we do there is we really don't necessarily want to train people on this is how you do programming at a radio station.
Right.
We want to connect them with leaders so that they know this is the journey that I went on to get to where I am, so that these people know what they need to do as far as what their path could look like. So it's
Mm.
really more about like, okay, we had like last year, we had the marketing director for K11 Air One join us. And so she was able to say, I started out on the record company side, and I were in be able to just kind of like show that. And what does her day-to-day job look like? Like, is she just sitting there trying to come up with marketing ideas? Well, no, she kind of goes through that whole process. And we do that with other positions at a radio station as well, because they're going to get the training somewhere else. This is really to help them network with people that are inside our industry. This year, what we do this every other year. We take a tour of some of our larger radio stations that are in the Nashville area, just to be able to see up close and personal what it looks like to have a live working radio station, and kind of get people excited about this is all the workings like behind the scene that you could be a part of someday if this is the path that the Lord would have you on. So it's 2 days. We have a lot of fun with it. It's probably one of my favorite things that we do. We do other events throughout the year, but this really is bringing in the students that are like passionate about learning more about how God can use them, whether that is through a radio station, or they might have decided, you know what, I do want to maybe chase down the music path and learn more about record company side of things. So it's just an opportunity for people to learn more and to be able to meet people, because at the end of the day, networking is what it's all about, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that's how I got my job, is because of somebody I know. And we want to help them be able to find those people. Lots of our graduates that come through CMB University, this 2-day event, end up working at a radio station, and they've met their boss at our event. And that's so thrilling to us, Leslie, to be able to say, wow, the Lord is using us to be able to bring those two together. And
Yeah. Make those
there's
connections.
such a satisfaction in that. So can you hear me okay?
There, you went quiet for a second there.
Oh, okay.
Luckily, we'll edit that out. But
That
I am
sounds good.
that is such a great thing to hear. It is so exciting to know that this is an option. I think that this is something that people probably had not thought of in the way that you just laid it out, the opportunities, the impact, the mission behind what you do. And so I'm so glad that we had a chance to have this conversation. I'm going to be sure to link everything that you just talked about in the show notes. So parents, go there, grab those links, pass them on. Michelle, thank you so very, very much for joining us today. It's been a lot of fun,
Thank
but I've learned a
you.
lot, and I'm sure everybody else has too.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much, Leslie.
Well, you are welcome. And to everyone else, thank you for hanging out with us today. You know, we talk all the time about how your home is your Jerusalem, but this is an opportunity for your kids with that foundation that they got right there at home to go out and impact the world at large as they go into Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth. This is a very, very exciting opportunity. And so I encourage you to go check out CMB, check out CMB University, start thinking and praying along these lines with your kids. This may be exactly that opportunity that just lights them up and really turns on that excitement and that passion for serving the Lord in their own lives. So check it out. I'll link everything in the show notes. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.